To say I love you has always been rather conspicuously easy. I mean, we should have some action that goes with it. I mean, if I went to Marcy and I was like, got this crinkled up piece of paper in my pocket and I take it on, I'm like, I love you. And I think you're really cool. In fact, I think you're flawsome. Doesn't really sound too sincere. Not too much it's not straight from the heart. It's not that. On the same hand, you can say, oh, I love you. I love you. But if you never do anything about it, you never show any action, that also is a little bit sketchy. Paul, he kind of just knocks it out of the park when he talks about love in a Christian. Like if you're a Christian, your love should be very, very practical. Right in the home, right from the start, loving your wife, loving your husband. It should be in your workplace, doing what's right, doing your best as unto the Lord. Christianity is very, very practical in this way if you take it the way it's supposed to be taken. So as rubber hits the road, Christianity, when Paul starts talking about the Christian at home and at work. So you got to remember the context of where Paul's writing. He's writing first century Jewish man in a patriarchal society, writing to first century Jews and Gentiles under Roman oppression, under a time when most marriages were arranged, a time when women were degraded really. And Paul's writing, and he actually includes the women. He's lifting them up even as he writes them, saying, hey, wives, listen to me. Because when he's doing that, he's giving them credibility. He's saying they're important. In fact, he's already said they're equal as co-heirs with their husbands with Jesus Christ. Paul was cutting against that cultural grain already when he writes them. Some words that are sometimes maybe hard to hear in our modern ear. For instance, here's what he writes. Wives, so he's addressing the ladies, wives, submit to your husbands. Our ears go, ow, submit. We don't like that word. It means to come under. It's usually given to this connotation of oppression and somebody lording it over them rather than a sense of tucking in under loving care. Because the very next line, I'll just read this stuff. Wives, submit to your husbands as is fitting to the Lord. Husbands, love your wives and do not be harsh with them. Children, obey your parents in everything, for this is pleasing to the Lord. Hey, fathers, don't provoke your children. Don't provoke your children, lest they become discouraged. Bondservants, obey in everything those of your earthly masters, not by way of eye service, not just kind of doing it when they're around, as people pleasers, but with sincerity of heart, fearing the Lord. In fact, whatever you do, do it heartily, work heartily as for the Lord, not for men, knowing that your reward comes from him. You'll receive the inheritance of your reward. You are serving the Lord Christ. So again, now in context, Paul cuts across the grain, even in addressing women, very patriarchal society, not just a Jewish society, but all the way through. And he's saying, you can enjoy equality with your husband. This is the way it is. This is the grace of Christ in your life. And it's because of that, she should actually take some special care in how she treats her husband, because non-believing neighbors, ladies and men are watching how this works. You are an example to the people around you, whether it's at home, at work, or play, at school, or wherever. So he's saying, wives, listen, you should submit to your husbands. Now again, this to the modern ear, it sounds like that's a huge step backwards. But the very next line clears it up, saying, husbands, love your wives. Don't be harsh with them. In Ephesians, Paul says, husbands, love your wives as Christ loves the church and gave himself for them. Lay down your life for them. I think that a woman would have no problem submitting to her husband who loves her the way Christ loves the church. I don't think she'd have a problem with that at all. And what husband wouldn't love his wife who's very loyal to her or loyal to him like unto Christ? What woman wouldn't love her husband that way? Like, you see how this really could work and should work. In fact, I think her side of the deal is pretty much impossible unless he does his side of the deal, loving as Christ loved the church. He needs grace to do that. She needs grace to do her part. Both of them need grace to really make this a go. And these two commands really they depend upon each other. They work together, hand in glove. This is the way it's supposed to go. Now, Paul says this, in fact, as you love your wife, it's evidence that you're a Christian. Like, your Christianity better work there too. If you're not loving your wife and serving her, something's off. In fact, it should be evidence of Christ in you is loving your wife, and Christ in you loving your husband in that sense. And just when the kids think, well, they got off, it says, no, children, you need to obey your parents in everything. Now, he's not talking about obey them if they're asking you to sin or commanding you to sin. So you got to be careful with that. But the idea generally is to obey your parents. It pleases the Lord, gives you long life. There's promises with it. Honor your parents. If you're an adult and you go, how do I honor my parents now? Probably one of the best ways to honor your parents is to be forgiving. Forgive your parents. And because as Paul shows right away, there's always another side to the story. And it says, now, children, obey your parents. But fathers, don't provoke your children to discouragement. Like, I think it's funny that he doesn't say, and moms, don't provoke your children, because probably there's exceptions to the rule out there. But for the most part, it's the dudes who get frustrated first with the kids, and next thing you know, they're provoking them to anger, they're provoking them to discouragement. So he's saying, dude, smarten up. Don't provoke your children to cause them to be discouraged, right? And then he says, and if you're working, basically, bond servants, obey your masters. Don't just use eye service. Don't be just trying to, ooh, boss is here, everybody work. No, outshine everybody around you. Work hard. It actually represents your Christianity. Work hard out there. And it says, in fact, work as if you are doing this unto the Lord, as if he's your boss. Man, if you had that in your mind, if he's your boss in everything you do, and you do it unto him, you're going to do far, far better. And it says that he sees it, and he will bring reward for that. He gets it. So, love your wife, love your husband, mutually submissive to one another, actually, Paul says in other areas. Children obeying your parents, parents loving your kids, work, play, whatever you do, do it heartily as unto the Lord. For it's not men that you're trying to impress, it's him that you're trying to live for and to please. It goes right the whole gamut. Work, play, life, rubber hits the road. This is how you do it. Understanding that whatever you do, work heartily as unto the Lord, for it's him that you're serving. You're serving the Lord Christ. He sees, and he will bring reward. You want to please him? Do it as unto the Lord. Everything. Heartily. Everything. Even eating. Even drinking. To the Lord.